Let's bring in our own crypto baller, Brian Kelly. He joins us on the fast line. BK, why did Bitcoin go higher on this news?
Well, for exactly the reason that you just mentioned. I think everybody else in the market did that calculation and said there's going to be some percentage of public companies that add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. And, there's a multiplier effect. When you put $1 in, you get multiple dollars in Bitcoin price. So the market calculated that and said, this isn't going to be the only one. This is just really the tip of the spear.
Do you think that this whole notion of Tesla holding this because it's going to accept it as future payment, is that a driver? I mean, you're a Bitcoin baller, but of course you're a stock market guy too. Is that a driver for Tesla, if you will? I mean, Tom Lee had tweeted earlier something to the effect of there's all this Bitcoin being held and there are very few places to spend it at this point. So this is a smart business move for the future.
Yeah, I think, the way I think about Bitcoin is that there's a life cycle to it, right? So we started off kind of in the seed stage, then you went to the growth equity. We're really in the commodity phase of it. And then with this Tesla saying, hey, this is someplace you could spend it, that's going to shift it to that currency phase. And that's when it'll be less speculative. That's when it'll be less volatile. It'll probably be less interesting to a volatility junkie like BK, but it's the maturation of the market. So I think, Tesla doing that is really good. That being said, I think it's multiple years away before you start really seeing Bitcoin being used as a transactional currency.
Hey, BK, it's Tim. Is the next wave of digital coins or tokens coming now again? I mean, I'm just curious about the broadening of the market. Very clear, Bitcoin is the standard, but could somebody else emerge to take some of that treasury market that we're talking about with corporate America, or is it going to be all Bitcoin?
Bitcoin's got a heck of a lead, Tim, and this whole game is about network effect, and the bigger you are, the more value you become. So, at this point, I think Bitcoin's got a pretty good lock on it. That being said, I think of Bitcoin as the reserve asset for a new digital economy. So you think about something like Ethereum. That's being used to build a lot of decentralized fintech-type products. CME just launched futures on that today. That's probably what's next here is people start looking and saying, okay, wait a second. I've got Bitcoin as a reserve asset. What do I do with it? I can do all these things in DeFi and fintech, and I'm going to need coins to do that. That's where the other coins come in.
BK, it's Karen. Big fan of your work. Thanks for being on. What about thinking about Bitcoin as it relates to the size of gold as a reserve currency? That hasn't been so much of the argument, but how do you think about that? Should it be the same as gold?
So there's lots of arguments that it could be even a multiple of gold because it's a lot more useful than gold. This is really a currency of the internet. And if you do really have a digital economy grow, it's going to be a lot more valuable than gold. That being said, I always shy away from these huge price predictions just because we've got to get to these other steps. And really, kind of the benchmark is if you're a new product and you can grab 20% of the market share, then you're considered on your way and you're a success and you're a disruptor. Bitcoin is about $600 billion roughly in market cap today. Gold's $10 trillion. So we got to get to $2 trillion in Bitcoin before we even can say that, hey, this has really disrupted gold. For me as a speculator, that's a massive upside, and I'd just be real happy if Bitcoin got to $2 trillion.
I bet you would. BK, good to see you. Thank you. Brian Kelly, BKCM. So, Tim, I'll go to you on your dollar. I say your dollar facetiously. But in terms of the forces driving the dollar lower, if one is to believe that Bitcoin is going to increasingly be adopted by institutions, by S&P 500 companies, I mean, is that yet another force against the dollar?
I think the dollar is largely trading on its own fundamentals here. I don't think the dollar is weaker on the back of whether there's been more focus on digital currencies or gold for that matter. The dollar on an exploding deficit, on the dynamics of where I think policy is, both monetary policy and fiscal policy, really is playing it. And again, sometimes dollar dynamics are very technical. And you know, comparing the dollar to the euro, people probably say no comparison. but Europe, at least runs a current account surplus. And so there's dynamics here that I think will just have the currency trading based upon those fundamentals. It doesn't mean, though, that the weakening dollar and then the inflation dynamics that we are talking about, that are a result of the weaker dollar, and I think things we're all very concerned of, and I think are underestimated in markets right now, are reasons why institutions, and especially institutional investors, say, I have to own some of this, because this is a hedge, I think, for financial assets.
Dan?
Yeah, if you think that the U.S. Treasury and the U.S. government is going to let this thing get out of hand, where literally corporates are starting to replace dollars to a large...
What can they do at this point?
They can regulate the hell out of it, is what they can do. And we've already seen that. I mean, we've seen it to some extent. I'm just telling you. I mean, they're going to let the dollar fall away from being the reserve currency for the world. So right now, we are in a bit of a euphoric state. I mean, when you think about, what are we talking about here? We're talking about Tesla and we're talking about Bitcoin. These are two risk assets that have gained more than $1 trillion combined in like the last 6 months, and it's all based on hopium. And I don't mean to hate on all of this. All these people who are making a ton of money on both of these things, just understand that there's got to be some sort of gravity that takes hold at some point, and the two of them combined make for, I think, a really difficult situation if they both start going down together. And the ripple effects that we will see across currency markets, financial markets, and the such could be really great. No one is talking about it right now. There are no more naysayers in Bitcoin. So I would just say to you, have at it at 45,000, because you've taken out everybody who thinks it's a scam.
Yeah, it is approaching 45,000 as we speak.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.